Starting broadcast.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. This is Alan Schimmel, Editor-in-Chief of DevOps.com, and thanks for joining us on another DevOps.com webinar. Today's webinar is sponsored by our good friends at Electric Cloud, and we're happy to have what we think is going to be a very, very interesting webinar. The title is ShiftLeft Performance Automated Self-Healing. Before we get more into that, though, let me just briefly go over some ground rules here that'll make our webinar flow much easier for everyone. We're expecting a really big crowd today, and so we've set aside time at the end of today's presentation for audience questions. However, we would prefer if you would use your GoToWebinar control panel. You'll see the section marked questions, and if you could use that to expand, the little arrow expand, you could type your questions in there in real time. The reason that we asked to do this is for a couple of reasons. Number one, if you're anything like me, you probably will forget your question if the question came to you early in the presentation by the time we do questions. Number two is once your question is put into the question section, it's queued, it's chronologically in order, and the earlier you ask your question, the better the chance probably is that we'll be able to answer it right here online today. If we can't get to all of the questions, we do have a written record of them, which is number three, and we can get that to our panelists afterwards, and they can maybe write the answer to the question, which we can then either mail to you or send to or post on the website when we do this. So questions, please go to the question section, and let me head off the usual first question, which is this going to be recorded, and are there going to be slides available? And the answer to that is yes and yes. Beyond questions, if you're having any kind of technical difficulty, perhaps your slides aren't advancing or you're having trouble with audio, we do have web engineers standing by on the chat section of your control panel, and if you type your problem in there, we'll do our best to try to help you and give you the best webinar experience that we can. So use chat for technical issues, question section for question issues, and then the third part of the interface that we'll be using is we're going to be asking a few polling questions today, one or two, and these are multiple choice, easy to answer questions. But I having done many webinars, I will tell you that number one, it's the best way for our panelists to understand a little bit about the audience, to try to tailor some of the presentation to where you are, and it also makes it more interactive with the audience, and at the end of the day, I think everyone's better for that. So we will have that, polling questions at the right time. And I see we've already got the PowerPoints will be shared question. And as I said earlier, yes, PowerPoints and the recording of this webinar will be available on our website as well as on our YouTube channel, DevOps TV. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's jump into what I think is going to be a great webinar here. As I said earlier, the title of today's webinar is ShiftLeft Performance Automated Self-Healing. Our two panelists come to us, number one, from DynaTrace, and it's Andreas Grabner. Andreas is a technology strategist. You can see it's Greater Boston area and some good information out here on him. And number two, we're happy to have from Electric Cloud, Ananda Hire, GM, Head of Product Management. And let me just make sure our sound is working. Anand, can you hear me?
Yes, sure I can, Alan. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Sounds good. Andreas, how about yourself?
I can hear perfectly fine. Hopefully you can hear me too.
Yes, sir. Good sound check, guys. So with that being said, let me turn things over to Andreas and Anand, and I'll be popping in and out. Guys, you can take it from here, and let's get this webinar going.
Sounds good.
Thanks a lot there, Alan. Hi, Andy. How are you doing?
I'm good. Greetings to the West Coast from rainy Boston today.
All right, everyone. So really today at a high level, what we'll do is we'll focus on understanding how some of the DevOps initiatives, how they can be made even more successful by the notions of ShiftLeft, where really the main idea is to uncover potential issues well before they hit production, and then and also automatically remediating through something called auto healing the production issues so that you can quickly recover and restore your service. And we will we'll quickly introduce DynaTrace and Electric Cloud, but then we will fundamentally focus on how these two companies and the products come together to really help you with ShiftLeft and auto healing practices, right?
Cool. So, I mean, Anand, if you talk about ShiftLeft and self-healing, maybe some of the people actually wonder out there, I mean, why do we need the whole thing? I mean, why do we need ShiftLeft? I know we've heard about it. Why do we need self-healing? And I think one of the questions we really want to answer is, why is the industry demanding these approaches? And to kick it off, I know both of you, you and I, we're both traveling and we're speaking with a lot of people, but not only would we hear, but I believe, as we all know, DevOps is a key driver to what's happening in industry right now, right? If we just recite what the industry leaders out there are saying and the analysts, that DevOps is in the top 3 CIO initiatives. You can see the quote for yourself. It is a big deal. And I believe exactly because of that, we need to also find new ways on how we actually deal with the speed and velocity in which our business now is demanding us to push out new software releases. And I believe, not only the analysts are friends of us, Anand, I know you also know the guys from DORA pretty well who bring out the State of the DevOps report.
Indeed, right. I mean, there is almost a surge of incoming interest that we see, and there is a lot of interesting work done by some experts in this industry. And as you said, our strategic advisors like Dr. Nicole Ferguson and Gene Kim, and they recently published this State of DevOps report, and they are clearly noticing a significant spike in DevOps adoption. And as you can see that, I mean, it has continued over the years, and really when you think about some of the some of the business drivers for, you call it DevOps, we also hear terms like continuous delivery, application release automation. Overall, they tend to be very similar and consistent, right? In this software-driven economy, where consumers are asking for quick time to market, companies of different shapes and sizes and even different verticals are all looking to improve their speed and quality to the delivery, quality of their deliverable to market. Obviously, they're looking to reduce their cost and operational efficiency, fundamentally trying to remove as many manual tasks as they can and automate as much as possible. But when we look at most of it, I think one vector that really separates itself is the desire to move fast, speed to market. How are you noticing this, Andy?
Yeah, I agree with the same thing. And actually, I think what I also want to remind the audience, I believe you should have seen a pop-up question just coming up in the webinar where we ask you about are you also adopting DevOps? So that would be very interesting for us because we believe, based on the numbers and based on what we see, these are the driving factors. And Anand, I totally agree with you, right? It's speed to market is the #1 driver, but there's also other things. And I put the asterisk on employee retention there, which I thought is actually interesting because we are obviously all battling for the scarce resources out there of engineers and of people in the tech industry that can actually help us to build the next generation of our software. And because the battle is so hard, I think we also need to understand that employee retention is a big thing, and I just learned this from many of my conversations. Engineers really like to work in companies that are adopting DevOps best practices.
Andreas and Anand, so we were trying to wait for a pause in the in the talking. The poll question was up, the first poll question. And what is your timing for DevOps? We didn't get a chance to announce it. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, but, we're sometimes getting too excited.
It's okay.
No problem. No problem. In fact,
I mean, if you look up on the screen, I think you'll see the answers. The audience voted, and what is your timing for DevOps? 39%, almost 40% already doing it. Almost a third are within a 0 to 6 months. So when you look at already doing it in 0 to 6 months, we're looking at almost 65% here, right? It was more.
Yeah.
16, 71%, almost over 2/3, near 3/4 are either already doing it or within the next 0 to 6 months.
Indeed. And this does actually coincide and corroborate really well with the finding that we shared. And the way I see it is, DevOps, to a large extent, is a journey. So people have started, people might get started, and then it takes a while before you really reach the success that you started the journey for. Mm-hmm. So, right, and like we said, these tend to be the adoption drivers. And if you think about some of the other statistics that we have seen from the DevOps Days report that we talked about, they're very interesting findings, right? This report, if you have not already seen, compares the high performers with the low performers and their overall DevOps adoption. As you can see, it's quite interesting to see that while the high performers are still doing better on the speed to market vectors, like the deployment frequency or lead time to changes, the speed gap is closing if you compare to last year, right? They're still faster, but not as fast as last year. But that said, what is very interesting for me is the high performers have surged ahead in terms of quality of that delivery, right? Their mean time to repair or change failure rates are significantly better this year than last year. And this is very important because one shouldn't have to sacrifice quality at the expense of speed. But that's easier said than done because there are many overall challenges that we have seen for DevOps adoption, as well as really getting success with the DevOps adoption in the market. So what are you finding there, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's also interesting is with these numbers, it doesn't mean that the high performers are getting slower, but I think let's say the high performers are just speeding up with better in failure reduction or handling failures. But I think, as you said earlier, the low performers, the main companies or the enterprise companies that are starting to adopt DevOps, they're really just speeding up, but they are sacrificing quality, which means they're falling really behind on the quality gap. And I believe this is also one of the reasons why we talk about what we talk about today. It is handling the quality aspect better. And this is just a phenomenal thing. So now what I also see out there, and just to sum it up, what are the challenges? So when we talk with people, why do you actually struggle with DevOps? Even though you have been, the mandate from top down, I think technical complexity is a big problem. Even though, I mean, I have to say, I love what DevOps promotes. Right? DevOps promotes use the best stack for your problem, meaning you have to solve a certain technical a business problem, then choose the stack that makes sense for you, whether it is a certain technology stack, a certain delivery methodology. That's all great. But it also brings technical complexity because you end up eventually with a huge mix of different technologies and somebody has to deal with it. Also bad quality, right, Anand? We talked about this. DevOps these days is mainly driven from the top down by the business drivers because we need to go faster to market, but often we see it doesn't mean quality to market, and this is totally reflected in the numbers that we saw earlier in the DevOps State of the Union report, basically. Now, another big point, and I have to say I not stole, but I got inspired to use this term alert drowning by one of the gentlemen. He's an operations guy that I met at the DevOps Days in Toronto. And he said he's in operations, and because he is dealing with so many different technologies now, because their DevOps teams are allowed to pick whatever technology they need, he's ending up with so many different tools that give him alert about how these individual technologies are doing, but they're all not connected. So in the end, he's drowning in alerts that just end up in an inbox somewhere that he's never looked at. And so basically for him, this is just impossible because nothing is really actionable. So he's missing a lot of really important things. And this also leads to the last point that I want to make here is I believe, and this is what at least I hear out there, the ops part of DevOps are the ones that are disrupted the most because they are, first of all, overwhelmed, I think, with the rapid change and with the amount of new work and technologies that they have to deal with. And I believe this is just something that we have to really make sure to address. We really need to make sure to focus on the challenges that are especially seen on the ops part of DevOps. And you may ask, what is IT less IT teams. And I put this in there because I listened to a keynote speech at the DevOps Enterprise Summit actually in London not too long ago. And it was, I think, the CTO of Hiscox, and he said, well, their organization changed, their ops teams change, not into something that is no ops or DevOps, but he just said it's IT less IT teams. That means their IT teams are changing. It's not always easy, but what they're doing less IT because they're doing more infrastructure as code, more automation. So I just wanted to put this out there because these teams, I believe, are struggling a lot. Now, Anand, I hope this all makes sense to you as well, right? This is kind of just...
It totally does. It's not just the adoption, right? What we see is companies get started on the DevOps journey, and the pragmatic customers will get started on an area of their software delivery pipeline. But I see these to be also the challenges for really getting the value out of your DevOps investment. So I totally agree with this. Visibility will be another angle that I'll talk about here. But we see this totally too, yeah.
Yeah, cool. So I think what we want to now give the audience, because we've helped, obviously companies grow from kind of maturing from just faster to market to faster quality to market, which I assume the whole audience agrees on. That's the right way to look at DevOps and kind of at the transformation. And we give you 3 individual steps that we hope it makes sense to you and that you can also start implementing first in a theoretical way, and then later on when we talk about our products and how we integrate, how we can actually do this in real life. And I think Anand, you wanna take away the first step because automation is obviously dear to your heart and Electric Cloud's heart.
Totally, yes, and thanks, Andy. And quite frankly, I won't call it the first step, but the journey typically begins where you're trying to automate your software delivery pipeline, or as much of it as you can, right? And what you're trying to do is automating this path to prediction through various stages like dev, test, prediction, and then even after prediction, making sure that operations and the business teams are involved. The idea here is most of your workflows are automated, like provisioning and configuring the environments, deploying the applications, introducing quality, security gates, making sure that you are controlling the progress of the code as it moves from as it leaves the developer's IDE all the way to the production. Now, while I'm saying that the first step or the initial thing is to get started with this end-to-end pipeline, really, you can get started with these stages anywhere, right? You don't have to boil the ocean and really completely transform your software delivery pipeline to get started. We've seen customers get started with CI first. We've seen customers get started on the pre-prod to prod. But the whole idea is start automating, and the more you can automate, the better, and the faster you can start to deliver your newer versions to market. But you also want to do that with a very clear eye to quality, right? And while that is true, and then of course there is the other aspect to it, isn't it?
Yeah. So basically, pushing things from left to right is great, automation. But then what we see from a monitoring perspective, it's about understanding what these changes that you push through all the way out into production that obviously then hopefully supports business. This is also the reason why we drew the business circle at the end, because the business is obviously leveraging the stuff that goes into production, then acting on the feedback, because in the end what I think we want to make our users happy by providing them faster with the things they need. But also in the world where we live right now, we should not just allow everyone to push code out all the time without figuring out, is this efficient code? Is this code that is actually used or not used? Maybe because if you're pushing features out that nobody really needs anyway, then we're just increasing the costs on infrastructure and operation and maintenance that nobody needs. So I believe it's very key that we understand that we need these feedback loops, and the first feedback loop is obviously the big one, where we see what do we push out and how is it accepted. And I believe if we do this, and this can be done with any type of software, right? With your enterprise monolith, this can be done. I think if you start automating from left to right and automating all these manual steps to push code changes faster through into production, and then measuring what the business impact is, then this is already your first step towards speeding up your delivery, because you eliminate all the manual tasks, but also measuring business success and business impact. And I believe this is key here. Now, when we talk about these pipelines, then I think there's a second step, or the next generation or the next evolution of this pipeline, we believe that monitoring is a key part, and monitoring has to be used not only in production or for business monitoring, but we believe if you actually use monitoring on the first phase of the pipeline, for instance, if you encourage your developers in the development environment, or your performance engineers, your testing environments, to actually use monitoring already, automated hopefully, when they run their unit performance tests, their continuous performance, and looking at these performance measures from build to build to build, then they can identify regressions in these lower level environments, in these earlier feedback cycles, and with that we can achieve what we call shift-left performance. Because what we really want to do, and what we have to do, is we have to break the pipeline as early as possible, and we don't want to push out code changes that we already know are going to be not good from a performance, from a resource perspective, from an architectural perspective. So baking performance into your pipeline as additional quality gates allows you to shift left performance, and in general I would say shift left quality. So that's a key thing. Now it goes further, obviously, and that's where you again come in, and I'm talking about you. I mean, obviously there's both of us play a role here, but if we keep monitoring what's going on, not only at the end user, but on everything we do out there in production, we can really do much more than just shifting left, and that's where auto healing comes in, right?
Exactly, right? Just because the newer versions have reached production, right, the feedback loops and the benefits of DevOps automation don't have to end. In fact, the issues that arise in production, we all know, are more critical and mission critical, and require immediate attention to recover faster. So using monitoring data that you can quickly alert or understand of an potential performance issue or an SLA issue, and quickly remediate that by maybe rolling back because maybe the version that you just deployed was not a good version. Use that feedback loop. Or you are seeing your CPU capacity go up and you need to add more resources, right, to add more capacity. In fact, business owners and service owners can even monitor how well the new features are being received. Are they accessible to users? And they can use this continuous feedback loop. What we are seeing is, especially on the production side, is this is where some very interesting and important techniques like canary deployments, blueprint deployments, or dark launches agents, feature flags can also come handy, which really allows business owners to try out newer features to subset of users, and really then make the go or no-go decisions. And if things go well, roll it out. If not, revert back, right?
Yeah.
So as you can see that the feedback loops are introduced, you can start shifting left in pre-production to uncover potential issues, and at the same time automatically heal for faster recovery in production. Andy, is this where we want to do another poll?
I think so. So I think what we want to make sure is that we just explained, what is shifting left. That means stopping early by using additional metrics for quality gates, but then also being able to look at monitoring data, as you said, to figure out how is new code behaving, and then what can we do in order to mitigate any potential problems, whether it's removing a thing that doesn't work well or adding more resources. So I think the polling question, Ellen, do you want to?
The polling question is up, Andreas. Yes, what is more important to you? Select one of the following, and it's either shift left reporting or automated self-healing. If you could choose one or the other, and we'll close voting off. I could use your help here. Close voting off in just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, and the survey answers are, so 62% said shift left reporting was more important than automated self-healing. Gentlemen, is that about what you expected?
I think from my perspective, I think it is what I expected, because I believe if we shift left, we can tackle the problem probably where it has the biggest impact, right? If we are fixing quality up front, then we don't have to necessarily deal with figuring out how to auto-heal, even though I believe auto-healing and auto-remediation is a big topic. So for me, I think it's something that I expected. Anand, what about you?
Oh, I totally agree. I'll use a very weird and poor analogy. It's like using vaccines versus medicines, right? So you want to stop the problem before it can occur. So yeah, the sooner you can find out, it becomes, Perfect. I agree with it, yeah.
Cool. So that was step number 2. So adding basically monitoring into the pipeline. Now, Anand,
And yeah,
what does that mean?
Exactly right. So we talked about having the step 1 and step 2. Frankly, they're not very serial, right? Some of this could be done in a synchronous fashion. But as the world is moving to reduce sample sizes, microservices, and containers, where things really get scaled up, these practices, I think, become even more important, right? You got your feature team A, you got your various teams working in their own side, independently of each other. Andy, can you please advance the screen?
Sure.
Yeah, right, where you have different teams working nowadays independently. Either they are through the technology stack, or they are doing it through their own small pieces of a larger puzzle. As things get scaled up at an enterprise level and things get more and more automated, the sample size is reducing. This becomes even more important that you have not only automated your pipeline, but your feedback loops are in place, because that's when you want to really control the output, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think what we try to visualize with this slide here is, as you mentioned earlier, right, we have microservices teams where we break the big application into smaller pieces, but then because DevOps promotes choosing the technology to solve a particular problem, you may end up like here, feature team A uses Node.js, feature team B, Java, feature team X, .NET, and there's many in between. And what that means, these teams typically have kind of their own pipelines, right, which is great. But what it also means, they have different technologies, different pipelines, and also different velocities where they are deploying changes. And what I've seen, and Anand, I'm not sure if you see the same thing, but while we promote microservice, which is great, and individual teams, I think we are just creating new silos. And these are now kind of our silos per team. They're kind of thinking only in their feature set, and they're pushing things out through the pipeline to make sure they can show off and say, hey, we deploy 50 times a day and we're so cool. But sometimes, and I believe, and this is where I see the biggest problem, and coming back to what we hear from the ops side of DevOps, the biggest challenge is the people that actually have to maintain and run and operate the environment where actually everything ends up together the first time. And whether you call it the cloud ops team, whether you have a platform as a service, whether you are, whatever your platform is, whether you're on cloud or hybrid cloud or on-premise, but you have a team, or at least parts of your DevOps team, that is dedicated to keep operations running. And I believe we have to make sure that we help this team particularly to ensure uptime, even if multiple different feature teams are deploying on different speed and different technology. And I think auto healing here can obviously help, but more importantly, as we said earlier, and kind of reflecting what our audience is saying, we need to shift left, meaning we need to empower every individual team to improve efficiency. So if they push code changes through the pipeline on whatever velocity they're on, they need to make sure that the stuff that ends up in production actually has the right quality. And so in the end, we also make sure that the business side, right, the business side that is then hopefully leveraging the features that are getting pushed through, they can see, okay, there's a new feature that was pushed through. How does this affect my end users? So just what you said earlier, a good feature, bad feature, communicating back through the feedback loops, was a good thing, was a bad thing, we need to take it out, we need to provide more resources, and so on and so forth. And the last thing not to forget, and I believe this is actually some of the most critical pieces, if we are starting towards building more microservice applications or consuming services from others, that means we will end up having more dependencies. And understanding these dependencies is key, because it allows you to assess the risk. So if you, for instance, know feature team A has dependencies on feature team X, and they're not even aware of it because in their siloed view in their pipeline, they mock away all the other dependencies and they don't even think about what that could mean in production. But if you know these dependencies, then you can make much better decisions, also first of all on enforcing quality on the critical services, but also making better decisions on what can the potential impact be and how careful do we need to be. But we believe if we do all of that, I'm pretty sure we can all scale up our DevOps efforts, but the key is to automate, but also use monitoring for all of the things that we've highlighted here, because you don't want the DevOps journey to be a pain for you.
Makes sense. Yep.
All right. I know we are struggling a little bit with moving forward the slides, but hopefully this will now get us over. So I think what we all need, and I just took it away. We believe on the one side you need automation, and that's where Electric Cloud comes in. And when we talk about the monitoring, we strongly believe that DynaTrace is the answer for you with our AI-powered quality gates based on our monitoring data. Now, we want to move over now quickly to give an introduction on who our individual companies actually are, and then end up with what we actually build in terms of integrations to actually make this a reality, what we just showed you.
Makes sense, totally, yeah. So, and real quick, we want to get to the actual integration quickly, so I'll try to move through this introduction part fast. Electric Cloud, we have been a company around for over a decade, and even before the terms like DevOps, ARA, that is Application Release Automation, CD became the terms that they are. We are firmly focused around helping customers deliver their software faster and better with higher quality, and we've been really doing that on the core product that we are going to talk about, on which most of our DevOps automation is built on, is Electric Flow. And that's really the Electric Flow technology that is integrated with DynaTrace's technology. And it's one unified platform for teams to automate their deployments, their releases, have complete visibility into what's happening with their DevOps landscape. So, and this is built on top of, like I said, the Electric Flow platform. It's a single, when we thought about solving or coming up with a solution to help customers deliver software right after the developer has checked in code all the way to the production, the last thing we wanted to do was our technology itself introduce silos, right? We didn't think about it creating a separate deployment automation solution or a release automation solution as two different technologies, or even CI tool as a separate technology. We have it is unified on a single end-to-end platform with a shared object model and shared visibility. It really simplifies really helps customers get to that end-to-end delivery in a unified way. Electric Flow is also comes out of the box with many of the core features that you would expect a technology solving the DevOps problem to have, like having a very opinionated deployment automation technology, being able to tell you what is deployed where, having native rollbacks, rolling deployments, what have you. And that is being done on a scalable and other platform. I really don't want to get into a lot of marketing stuff here. I want to get to the product. But one quick thing is this, because there is so much confusion around the vendor landscape of everyone trying to say, I do DevOps, the analysts like Forrester and Gartner in this case, they have done their research and they have published their, in case of Magic Quadrant for Gartner, for example, last year, they studied all the vendors here, and Electric Cloud was rated as the highest on both of their vectors. So it really talks about our ability to solve DevOps problems out of the box and do it with a very keen eye to our customers, right? And to just quickly position us in the overall landscape. Now, this is a bit of opinionated slide, but just to get you situated on where we see ourselves. If you think about the overall area of software delivery from developer writing code all the way to the production, you got your infrastructure layer where you have cloud providers and your configuration management vendors at the bottom, and then if there are a lot of vendors providing the end-to-end delivery. When we looked at the area of after the software is coded by the developer, right after it it gets checked into the source code repo, all the way till the point it's getting into production. There are tools out there, but there was no one really looking at it in an end-to-end way. At least when we started this, fragmented tools. What we found where the tools there are more fragmented or team-focused, and it's not about talking about other tools. The idea of this slide is to just show you the relative positioning of Electric Cloud. We're really focused around helping you deliver software right after the developer has checked in code, all the way to the production, managing your CD pipeline end to end. And now we've been used by many customers across different verticals. And what really makes exciting for me is it's not just the unicorns that we hear when like the Google and LinkedIn's and Facebooks of the world. When we hear the DevOps, sometimes those are the names that are that I talked about. But what is heartening for me is this traditional business is right from your your embedded verticals like telecom and networking, automotive industries, to your government industry, government agencies, all the way to your fin services. They're all leveraging us to improve their software delivery pipeline. And one of the couple of examples that you see is with customers like Huawei. Now, Huawei is a significantly large telecom provider in China and Asia Pac. And really, what is important as DevOps and ARA-CD we talk about. I mean, these terms are, in my opinion, means to an end, where it's really all about the business benefits that you're able to get. And in case of Huawei, we started with a certain starting point for their build times, their production time, but really mainly around the feature delivery time, right after you. After the feature gets coded all the way to the production, we were able to significantly shrink that cycle. And this goes back to that time to market vector that we were doing, and doing that with a very keen eye to the, of course, to the quality. And similar example here is of Gap. Gap, you wouldn't believe, has a very advanced, I would say, software delivery pipeline, and they do a lot of business online. And when they were also able to see transformational changes after working with us, and of course simply looking at their own practices, where their feature delivery time reduced from 15 days to a single day, right? But these are some examples. There are many of those that allow us to help transformational benefits to the customer. And then this is all based on top of this electric flow technology that I talked about, fundamentally based on this platform that has been solving the high-scale, high-security scenarios for many customers over the years, with lots of open integrations. And really on top of that, we have built the purpose-built experience with deployment automation and releases. But that's what electric flow is really about. It's fundamentally the technology that helps you manage your end-to-end software delivery, handles deployment automation, manages your releases across applications of any architecture, be it a monolith or a microservices, and being deployed anywhere, right? So that was quickly about electric flow. And Andy, do you want to talk about DynaTrace?
Yeah, but I'm pretty impressed with the Huawei and the Gap numbers. That's pretty cool. You can see how the individual phases then can obviously be automated individually, and then you speed up your individual, as you said, phases, and therefore reduce your bottlenecks. So who is DynaTrace? We are, just as you, ranked as #1 in our market share in our quadrant, #1 leader in the application performance management market share. You can see the numbers for yourself. Also, as you said, many of the large enterprises, we call them our successful customers, and we are happy to help them when it comes to monitoring and transforming their business. Now, one story that we are also very proud of, we as DynaTrace itself, we are a software company, obviously, and we made our own transformation. I've been with the company for 9.5 years, and I've seen the transformation from doing 2 major releases per year for our on-premise product to making the jump to a cloud-native software company, where we're now deploying 26 major releases per year and having 500 production deployments per day. And we figured out how to do this, and we shaped the products in that transformation. That's why we also believe, as a monitoring company, we walked through that same transformation that most of you out there in the enterprise are walking through. And we walked the path, we shaped our product, so we know that monitoring, the way we built it, is suitable for that transformation and crossing the bridge between enterprise and cloud native and hybrid. So that was important. A big thing that we realized, obviously our team also was very happy with technology diversity, right? We were trying to get all the technology in-house because we also wanted to monitor it. But one of the things we built is what we call our one agent technology. So we wanted to make monitoring as easy as possible across all the different stacks, technologies. So instead of having all of these individual tools that I mentioned earlier that cost a lot of technology diversity, or cost technology diversity, and eventually drowning in alerts and in data, we built one agent solution where you drop one agent on your platform, and then automatically DynaTrace takes care of all the technologies in your environment, understands all the dependencies, and only gives you actionable alerts in case something is really wrong, and doesn't flood your inbox with too many things. So we strongly believe we redefined monitoring. We redefined monitoring for organizations that are making the move from enterprise to the cloud, obviously also for the cloud natives and for those people that are still stuck on the enterprise stack for a while longer. And because we believe it's about monitoring every user, every app, everywhere. And AI, artificial intelligence, is a big key here because we have so many moving pieces. And another key aspect is, because we talked about this earlier, it's not only about monitoring in production, but full life cycle. We need to shift left, therefore start with quality and monitoring early to stop bad builds and bad ideas early, but then follow your code all the way into production with a single solution, and that's DynaTrace. So that's what we built, and we are happy to also share our stories and obviously the stories of our companies and our customers. So if you want to learn more about that, just go to dynatrace.com, and if you want to even test it out, we'll have the link later on, but just go to dynatrace.com, sign up for the free trial, and you will see what we built actually in our own transformation. Now, the thing is, what do we provide in combination? And we exactly want to now talk and show you how the product integration looks like and how you would actually implement DynaTrace and Electric Cloud for these three key use cases that we talked about. Shifting left, getting visibility into deployments to make better decisions about what actually just happened and what do we need to do in case something happened, something bad happened after deployment, and also what does auto healing really mean, how could this look like? And I think, Anand, I want to give you the schematic overview, and then we show them the screenshots of the product integration.
Wonderful, right? So we're going to talk about the first scenario here of shifting left. And really, if you think about the use case here is you're trying to find the issues well before they hit the production. So in this case, and this is one way the products are integrated. Of course, depending on your story, we can evolve that. But imagine that electric flow is invoked to start a pipeline. That can be started either based on a code check-in or some other way. But that deploys to, say, QA or pre-production, even in dev. And then you'll typically go through your battery of tests, like you'll use Selenium or JMeter or what have you, right? Do your load testing. And then what we are able to do is, this is where the integration with DynaTrace comes into picture, because DynaTrace DynaTrace is able to really keep a very close eye on how the application's performance or the build's performance is changing from build to build, and will be able to tell Electric Cloud or Electric Flow whether the performance has degraded or stayed the same or has gotten better as you compare to the previous build. And this all can be done completely automated. And suppose you notice degradation in the performance of the latest build as compared to the last build, then DynaTrace will immediately notify Electric Flow, hey, there is some issue that is happening, and then you might want to take a look at it. And using that data in Electric Flow, one can definitely write policies. And then once that notices come, you could have the policy such as you want to block this version from going forward to production, because there's a good chance that because of the architectural issues in this, it might cause issues in production at scale. Or you might want to have some human involved to make the go or no go decision, right? Basically, you're trying to now use in an automated way, information from these two tools to manage your software delivery process. And now the way, just to show you how this works in the with the screenshots, right here you see the screenshot of Electric Cloud's Electric Flow's pipeline. You can see that Electric Flow, in this case, imagine that the pipeline is initiated with a bad version. Really, by a bad version, I mean the performance of this is, it has some issues that might cause challenges in production. And DynaTrace, we've deployed it, we run some tests, and it has invoked DynaTrace, right? And then
Exactly. And so basically what we have then, what you see here is the way shift left continuous performance really works. So if DynaTrace is deployed on these environments where you run load, and this can be a load against the whole application, it could be load against a single microservice, it could be load against a combination of microservices. What we do is we monitor all of your individual builds, and I like to talk about this performance signature, and I believe I brought this up earlier. So envision electric flow is deploying build number 16 and starts a load test against build number 16. Then DynaTrace captures the key performance metrics or performance signature health metrics. So for instance, something like response time, throughput, failure rate, how much CPU consumption, memory consumption, how often do we call a certain third-party API that we may have to pay for. And if we do this continuously, from build to build to build, always triggered through our automation, we can immediately detect regressions on a performance level, on a scalability level, on a resource consumption level. And I think this is the key thing here. So we can then take this data and pull it back into your pipeline. And now this is where then we're obviously back in your product, where we can say go or no go decision, or move forward or not, or stop it there, right?
Exactly, right. Now imagine this is all automated, right? So electric flow invoked DynaTrace at the right time. DynaTrace compares this and tells electric flow programmatically that things are good or bad. And now you could have written a policy here which is, hey, check the performance degradation, and in this case the performance is bad. So you could choose to stop the pipeline, or in this case what we are choosing to do is the manual gate of approving or not approving gets triggered only if the performance is bad. If performance is good, it will be automatically pushed forward. If not, it will be stopped, right? So there are different policies that you can do. Fundamentally, this is all about how can you use these two products together to achieve that shift left that all of you seem to be really desiring.
Exactly.
Right? And yeah, and Andy, do you want to talk about the next one? Or maybe I can introduce this here quickly, yeah, and then, yeah, perfect. And now let's move to the next use case, right? So we spoke about, everyone wants to stop bad builds getting into production before they, and make sure that things can be stopped well before. But we all know that there are always issues that might arise in production that you may not have found earlier, right? It could be because you don't have enough test coverage, someone took a chance, someone made changes directly into the prediction, what have you. Now let's take a use case of this automatic rollback, which is one example of one way of doing self-healing. Now in this case, imagine that electric flow pipeline is invoked, a new version gets deployed into prediction, and when that happens, first and foremost, what we want to be able to do is provide the visibility to the operations user by just creating a deployment event or incident, saying that such and such version was deployed, so that the DynaTrace user can, or ops user can see it, right? Now imagine that this version is in production, and now after some time, DynaTrace monitors this version, and it notices that there is some service degradation on this new release. The performance characteristics are not where it needed to be, and you could have written a policy saying that if the threshold is crossed, then do something about it, right? And with the information that is there that this was because of a new build and the policy, it's possible that you can inform electric flow that it's potentially possible because of the last build that was just pushed through last version. So you might want to think about automatically remediating this using rollback. That is one remediating action. Of course, it's quite possible that another immediate action could be the build itself is fine. What you want to do is add more capacity because the load has increased, right? Either way, electric flow is informed of that, and then electric flow in this example here is able to automatically roll back the production environment to the last known good, so that you restore the service and then begin your triaging, right? And then of course notifying DynaTrace user again. Completely closed loop for automatic healing, because you really want to be avoiding issues that come up into production as soon as possible, right? Andy, do you want to talk about how the magic happens in DynaTrace?
Yeah, exactly. So what you see here is actually the screenshot. Once you deploy DynaTrace in your environment, we automatically detect your complete dependency map, you complete all the entities in your infrastructure, starting, as you can see, from the host, the processes, the services, and the applications, just by installing this one agent I talked about before. And we automatically get, all the monitoring on every single level. Now, what we have built and what we just said, when we deploy a new version from our pipeline into DynaTrace, then in this case, Electric Flow can tell DynaTrace on which particular entities, which processes, which services have been updated, which hosts, which configuration changes have been made. And these events flow into DynaTrace. where does this make sense, or where is this information then useful? So if a deployment happens, or if anything happens, and then DynaTrace detects that there is a problem, so we have our artificial intelligence that is then telling you, hey, there is a problem right now in some of the applications. We show you on the one side the business impact, so how many users are actually impacted right now. Also, what is the technical root cause? This could be a CPU problem, right? We deployed some code that had a CPU spike or caused some inefficient code that is causing CPU spike. But what we also have, and this is the key thing, DynaTrace, as I mentioned earlier, instead of having individual events from individual tools, and because of your different technology stacks, we have all of this information consolidated thanks to our machine learning and artificial intelligence, so we can show you the full problem evolution of how did this problem evolve over time. And one of the things that will be in there will be the problem was potentially triggered by the deploying of that pipeline. Additional information that is here is, for instance, CPU saturation. So Anand, what you said earlier, one remediating action could be rolling back. Another action could be if CPU is saturated, first try as a remediating action, add more CPU, and if the problem doesn't go away, as a next step, roll back. The cool thing is we have all this information, we push it over to electric flow, and then you can make smarter decisions in your workflows on what to do automatically based on all of this information. And yeah, we also see the complete event trace, and kind of to close the loop. Once the problem is detected, and Anand, you are executing a remediating action, then I think, as you said earlier, you would then obviously trigger whatever workflow you have, and which will then again flow up as an event in DynaTrace. So we know, hey, electric flow has just initiated an automatic rollback or has done this and this, and this is kind of perfectly closing the loop.
And exactly, I mean, what is that works here is electric flow has complete knowledge of these are the environments and these are the versions that are running in this environment, and these were the versions that were running before in those environments. Having that deep knowledge then allows restore points very easily, which is we can, depending on the trigger, say this is a version that is there, it was deployed to this environment at this time. Now if you want to roll back, we would have our snapshot created. Now snapshot is another capability in electric flow that allows you to do many things, and one of them is rollback, right? So having that data automatically in the system allows to take the restore action. This is one of the use case, right? Electric flow and DynaTrace combined together, and in fact you can add more capability, more technologies in here, like if you want to notify your IT service management product for event incident correlation, that workflow can also be automated, right? So this is just a kind of sample of what is possible. But fundamentally, what we see is a combination of DevOps and performance management really help you, manage your software delivery in a more efficient way.
Exactly.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, and now I think we already spent more time than we wanted, because we also obviously want to have time for Q&A. But I think hopefully people understand that it's about shifting left performance, so stopping problems earlier by using monitoring in your pipeline. And remember, shift left performance does not necessarily just mean performance as response time, but performance as resource consumption, as scalability metrics, architectural metrics, how my dependencies, right? So these are all shifting left. And then obviously the auto healing aspect, that is also more than just rolling back, but doing and executing the appropriate actions based on the problems that we've seen.
Exactly.
Now,
yeah, totally.
Great.
Ellen,
hey,
questions?
Guys. Yes, first of all, thank you so much for such an enthusiastic presentation today. It really came through that both of you are very enthusiastic about the subject, as well as very knowledgeable. So we've got a few questions from the audience. First things first was Scott Wingfield, who, more of a comment, said shift left reporting will enable self-healing. So, first things first, as he says, shift left comes before the self-healing. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, I believe that's what we said earlier too, right? If you do shift left, that means you have better quality that goes into production, and therefore the necessity of auto healing is obviously something that is less and less. But also I believe that in ShiftLeft, so if you have a performance environment, you can obviously already test auto healing, and you should obviously test auto healing. You should bring your system in stress and then figure out what the system is actually doing. This is also what obviously DevOps promotes, right? You should use the same tools and the same methodologies and approaches to deploy code into the different environments. So I totally agree with that. Shifting left is the predecessor. Right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, if I may add on that, Andy, right? Logically, I think if you had to start somewhere, then shifting left is the right place to start because you want to avoid the problem before it happens, right? But now, if you already have some of it automated with your prediction deployments being automated with some tool like electric flow or some other tool for that matter, you don't, you can get some benefits of auto healing alongside, I wouldn't say instead of alongside shift left as well, which is, you could start with something rollback or add-on capacity as use cases at the same time. So I would say logically it would totally make sense. If you have not done any, then it will make sense to start with shift left. But technically, you could start on either of those. But I would agree with you, Andy, that logically you should start with shift left first.
Great. Next question is from J.S. Andy. What is the strategy for leveraging DynaTrace single agent in unit testing?
So the strategy there is, and it's also how we use it internally in many of our customers. Now, a unit test is typically executing very fast, so you don't want to necessarily look at response time, because if a unit test takes 1 millisecond today and 2 milliseconds tomorrow, that's not necessarily a 100% regression. But you're looking at other metrics. For instance, how many times does the unit test call to the underlying data access layer? So how many database statements are executed? How much memory is allocated? How many threads does it spawn, the component that I'm testing? And if you take these metrics, and if you are looking at these, I call them architectural metrics from build to build, you can immediately find architectural regressions early on, even on a unit test basis. So if a developer makes a code change or even a configuration change to the underlying, I don't know, OR mapper, right? Let's call it Hibernate. And the number of database queries now goes from 2 to 200, then the unit test might still be super fast because it's against the mocked database anyway, but just the fact that now your code is making 200 versus 2 calls to another component is worrisome and should be looked into. And so this is what we do on a unit testing basis.
Excellent. Another question for Andy and DynaTrace. How does DynaTrace account for ops changes that are not attributed to code deployment? For example, operating system patching, virus programs, whitelisting.
Yeah, so I know I'm not sure if it was clear on some of the screenshots that I had on there, but you are installing a so-called DynaTrace 1 agent on a host, and then we automatically start monitoring the host itself, all the processes, also log files, and we understand when certain things change on that system. So that means we see these quote-unquote events, right, whether it's configuration events or log events or process events, we automatically detect all of these. Now, additionally, and this is also the way we implemented the integration with Electric Flow, we also provide you an API where you can proactively notify DynaTrace about the change that you're doing to that system, and that can then be fully automated. But out of the box, we already automatically detect what's happening on the system, which processes are running, which log statements are written. So we automatically do full log analysis. So every single log file that is written, we automatically analyze and see if there's certain log events in there. And with that, I believe we cover what has been asked in that question.
Okay. Next is, and this is a question for Anand, in Electric Flow load tests with JMeter or other tools, are these also automated by Electric Cloud?
Thanks, Aaron, and a good question, right? We spoke today about our integration and the purpose-built story with DynaTrace, and then well, that is one. Obviously, when you look at the end-to-end delivery, there are lots of different tools that need to be integrated. So JMeter and any other technology for that matter can absolutely be automated using Electric Flow. What we have is, again, in my slide, I ran through that very fast. There is almost over 150 plus integrations that we have, plugins for some, where we are able to, and that is across different categories: your source code systems, your unit testing, your unit functional testing, load testing, cloud tools, what have you. And all of those tools can be automated at the right time. And then more importantly, bring the information back from them to take remediating action. So yes, the answer to the question is absolutely yes.
Okay. Last question, because we're almost top of the hour. Does this process use test-driven development?
Well, I think I would promote test-driven development anyway, regardless which products
Yes.
you're using. So I mean, for me, test-driven development is a question that you have to answer with yes anyway. But it has nothing to do with Electric Cloud or DynaTrace. But obviously, if you have a test-driven development approach, then you much better leverage all your other DevOps best practices, right? So
Totally
that's my
agree
take.
with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you totally. I totally agree with you. Yeah.
Okay, gentlemen, that brings us to the top of the hour. We're going to have to call it a wrap. We do have a bunch of other questions, though, and thanks, audience. We are going to get those in writing over to our panel members, and we'll try to get you some written answers on them, either directly to you or perhaps posted along with the slides and video here. But that's it for today. Andy, Anand, thank you so much for, as I said, a great, enthusiastic presentation. Thanks so much to our friends at Electric Cloud for sponsoring another great webinar. And most of all, thank you all for attending today and taking time out of your busy day. We hope you found it informative and useful. Until we see you next time on another DevOps webinar, this is Alan Schimmel for DevOps.com. Have a great day, everyone.